The first sign that something was about to change came quietly, the way life-altering moments often do. A single father sat asleep in seat 8A, his head tilted toward the window, his breath shallow with exhaustion that went deeper than mist sleep. The cabin lights were dim, the steady hum of the engines a lullaby born of altitude and distance, and no one noticed him until the captain's voice cut through the calm with a question that did not belong on a commercial flight. When the captain asked if any combat pilots were on board, the air itself seemed to tense, and fate began to shift in ways no one could have predicted. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet strength of ordinary people carrying invisible burdens, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. The man in seat 8A had learned to sleep anywhere: airports, bus stations, hospital waiting rooms, the edge of his daughter's bed while she fought nightmares that clung like vines. His name was Daniel Mercer, though most people no longer asked. He was 38, but the lines around his eyes suggested a life that had demanded far more than its share. He wore a faded jacket that once belonged to a uniform long since folded away, and his hands, resting loosely in his lap, bore scars that told stories he never volunteered. He was flying home after burying his last connection to the man he used to be, a retired officer who had once known him as Captain Mercer before life redrew his map. Daniel had not planned on falling asleep. He had planned on staying alert, on keeping his thoughts from drifting toward memories that rose uninvited at 30,000 feet. But exhaustion won, as it always did. Single fatherhood had a way of hollowing out the spaces where rest used to live. His daughter, Lily, was 7, bright-eyed and fragile in a way that came from losing her mother too early and learning the world could change without warning. Daniel carried that loss like a second spine, invisible but essential, shaping every movement, every decision. He had promised Lily he would always come back, and every flight tested that promise. The aircraft had been smooth for the first hour, a gentle crossing of clouds that looked like fields of snow from above. Passengers watched movies, sipped drinks, scrolled through messages that waited at the edge of signal. The crew moved with practiced ease, unaware that the quiet man in 8A had once flown through storms that tore metal from the sky and demanded calm when chaos ruled. Daniel's dreams were not kind. They never were. They carried the echo of alarms, the taste of fear, the weight of responsibility that came with lives depending on his hands. Even in sleep, he clenched his jaw, as if bracing for impact. Then something went wrong. It began with the subtle change in the engine's song, a note slightly off-key, followed by a tremor that rippled through the cabin. Most passengers barely noticed, attributing it to turbulence, but the crew did. Training sharpened awareness, and within minutes, a quiet urgency replaced routine. Instruments in the cockpit told a story that pilots never wanted to read at cruising altitude. A cascading failure, unexpected and unforgiving, demanded decisions that would have to be made faster and made right. The captain's voice came over the intercom, calm but weighted, explaining there was a technical issue and asking passengers to remain seated. Then came the question that shifted everything, delivered without panic but with unmistakable gravity. The captain asked if there were any combat pilots on board, anyone with experience handling high-stress aerial emergencies, to please make themselves known to the flight attendants. A hush fell, thicker than the recycled air. People glanced around, searching faces for reassurance or fear. Daniel stirred, the word slipping into his dreams like a trigger. Combat pilot. The phrase carried a lifetime. He opened his eyes slowly, the cabin lights blurring into focus, his heart already racing as if it knew before his mind did. He sat still for a moment, wrestling with the instinct to remain invisible. He was no longer that man, he told himself. He had stepped away, chosen Lily over the sky, buried the past with honors and regrets. But the call had been made, and something inside him answered whether he wanted it to or not. As minutes stretched, no one stood. Fear has a way of pinning people to their seats, and even those with relevant experience doubted themselves in the face of real danger. Daniel felt the weight of every eye that did not look at him, the unspoken hope that someone else would take responsibility. He thought of Lily's laugh, The way she counted the days until he came home, the drawing she had slipped into his bag that morning with a crooked heart and the words "come back safe." He thought of promises, he thought of lives. Rising from seat 8A felt like stepping across a line drawn years ago. His legs were steady even as his chest tightened. He signaled a flight attendant, quietly, without trauma. The crew moved fast once they saw him, ushering him forward with a mix of relief and disbelief. Daniel caught his reflection in a darkened screen as he passed. A man who looked older than his years but carried himself with a familiarity that returned like muscle memory. He did not announce himself. He did not need to. The way he moved spoke for him. In the cockpit, the situation was worse than the passengers knew. Systems redundancy had failed in a rare alignment of bad luck, leaving the aircraft controllable but vulnerable. The pilots were skilled, but the margin for error had narrowed, and every additional set of trained eyes mattered. Daniel absorbed information quickly, his mind shifting gears into a mode he had tried to forget. Stress sharpened him. Years of training, missions that demanded precision under fire, all resurfaced not as memories but as instinct. He did not take over. He supported, he listened, offered suggestions grounded in experience, translated chaos into options. The cockpit became a place of focused collaboration. Fear held at bay by purpose. Outside, clouds thickened, weather complicating an already delicate situation. Inside, Daniel felt the familiar calm that arrived when there was work to be done and no room for doubt. As the aircraft descended toward an alternate airport, turbulence shook the cabin harder, drawing gasps and prayers from passengers who now sensed the truth behind the captain's earlier calm. Flight attendants moved through the aisles, hands steady, voices gentle, doing the quiet work of courage. Daniel glanced back once, through the cockpit door, imagining Lily's face among the rows, trusting him to make the world safe. The approach was brutal. Crosswinds tugged at the wings, systems lagged, and the runway seemed to narrow as if resisting them. Daniel's heart pounded, not with fear of death but with the ache of everything he stood to lose. He thought of the nights he had read Lily to sleep with borrowed voices, the mornings he packed lunches with notes she pretended not to read, the way she looked at him as if he were unbreakable. He could not fail her. He could not fail any of them. When the wheels finally touched down, it was not graceful, but it was controlled. The aircraft shuddered, tires screaming in protest, momentum bleeding away inch by inch until at last there was stillness. For a breathless moment, no one moved. Then the cabin erupted in sound, relief pouring out in sobs, laughter, hands clasped in gratitude. The crew followed protocol, guiding everyone safely, but the emotional release was unstoppable. Daniel remained in the cockpit until the last checklist was complete. Only then did the weight crash over him, leaving his hands trembling as adrenaline drained away. He did not seek recognition. He slipped back into the cabin quietly, returning to seat 8A as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Passengers noticed him then, though, whispers rippling like wind through tall grass. Some reached out to touch his arm, to offer thanks with wet eyes and shaking voices. He nodded, humbled, uncomfortable with praise that felt too big for one man. Hours later, in the terminal of an unfamiliar city, Daniel sat alone with his phone glowing in his hand. There was a message waiting, sent earlier when he had still been airborne. A photo of Lily holding her drawing up to the camera, her smile missing a tooth, her eyes full of trust. "Come back safe," it said again, as if the words could shape reality. He closed his eyes and let himself feel everything he had held back, tears tracing lines down a face that had seen too much and loved even more. News of the incident spread, as news does, trimmed and polished for headlines. A former combat pilot on board helps save flight. Hero single dad steps in. Daniel avoided it all. He returned home quietly, picking Lily up from school with a hug that lingered longer than usual. That night, as he tucked her in, he realized something had shifted inside him. He had spent years running from who he used to be, afraid that embracing that strength meant reopening wounds. But the sky had reminded him that his past was not just pain. It was also skill, courage, and a capacity to protect that did not disappear when he left the cockpit. Life did not suddenly become easy. Single fatherhood still demanded everything. Bills still arrived. Nightmares still visited. But there was a new steadiness, a sense that the pieces of him no longer had to compete. He could be Lily's dad and the man who once flew through fire. He could honor loss without being defined by it. He could trust himself again. If this story has touched your heart even a little, if it reminded you that ordinary people carry extraordinary strength, please take a moment now to like the video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps these stories reach others who might need them. And before this story ends, I want to ask you something personal. Please comment below with one word that describes how this story made you feel, or share a moment in your life when you stepped up despite fear. Your words matter more than you know. Daniel never told Lily every detail of that flight. Some things are too heavy for small shoulders. But years later, when she asked him why he always looked so calm during storms, he smiled and told her that fear doesn't disappear when you're brave. It just learns to sit quietly while you do what needs to be done. She nodded, accepting this as truth, because to her, her father had always been someone who showed up. And somewhere, high above the earth, clouds continued to drift, indifferent to human struggle and triumph. But on one flight, in seat 8A, a single dad remembered who he was, and in doing so, carried dozens of strangers safely home.